The front door didn't creak like usual. That was the first thing I noticed. It clicked shut, soft, intentional, like someone didn't want to be heard. The second thing was her purse. It sat neatly on the counter, strap folded, keys on top. That wouldn't have bothered me if it wasn't already after midnight. Mallory always left her purse in the car when she was drinking. Third thing, no heels, no coat, just silence. A perfectly arranged lie staged like a polite goodbye. She was supposed to be out for a quick drink. Said it like she was repeating someone else's excuse. She left at 6:41 p.m. Promised she'd be back before the game started. I told her not to rush. I was already dressed in old sweats, plate of leftovers balanced on my knees, pretending the living room was still a place where we existed together. At 9:14 p.m. I wrote her note. At 11:56 p.m. I placed it on the dining table next to her untouched glass of water and the candle that burned itself out. At 12:09 a.m., I heard the sound, a short gasp. Not scared, just surprised, followed by the rustle of fabric. I watched her walk in from the hallway like she hadn't seen the living room lights. She was fixing her hair slowly like she had time, like I wasn't there, but I was. She stopped when she saw the note. Her fingers brushed the edge of the paper. She read it once, then again. Her lips moved, just the shape of the words. Don't wait up anymore. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't call my name. She just pulled out a chair, sat down, and stared at the plate I left her. That's when I turned off the light. Not because I was going to bed, but because the show was over, and tomorrow, everything was going to change. She stayed in that chair longer than I expected, maybe 20 minutes, maybe more. I didn't check the clock. I just watched her from the dark hallway, unmoving, like someone trying to delay the weight of what came next. But even from a distance, I noticed something strange. She kept rubbing her hands together over and over. Not like she was cold, more like she was trying to clean something off. Mallory had a habit of wringing her fingers when she was nervous. I used to find it endearing, but that night it made my stomach twist because something was off with her hands. A smear near her ring finger. Dark, reddish, blurred. My first thought wasn't blood. I thought maybe lipstick, but she didn't wear red. Not anymore. She didn't say a word, just stood up, took her purse and disappeared into the guest bathroom. The one with the door that doesn't shut all the way unless you kick it. I heard the faucet, then water running, then silence. I didn't follow. Not yet. I went back into the kitchen, picked up the note I had written, the one she'd already read, and flipped it over. On the back I wrote something else, just 2 words. Tell me. I left it there, right where her plate had been. Then I walked out the back door. I wasn't planning on going far. I needed air. I needed space between me and whatever she was washing off in that sink. I walked to the old bench across the yard, the one her dad helped us build before he passed. We hadn't sat on it together in over 2 years. Not since the week she stopped talking about her dreams and started talking about needing something more. I sat there in the cold, waited, tried not to imagine worst-case scenarios. But my mind did what it always does, filled in gaps with suspicion. Was she even out drinking? Was there someone in the car waiting down the street? Was this her way of easing out of our life, one late night at a time? Then something truly strange happened. The porch light came on. She stepped outside barefoot, wearing my hoodie, holding the note in both hands. She scanned the yard, saw me on the bench, and for a second I thought she was going to come over. But she didn't. She just stood there. I saw the note. She said softly, like she was trying not to wake a baby that didn't exist. You didn't mean it. I didn't answer. Not right away. I just looked at her, watched how she avoided eye contact, how her thumb still rubbed her ring finger like something was missing. Then she said it, the thing that shifted everything. "I can explain, but I need to show you something first." There was a quiver in her voice, not fear, not regret, something else, like guilt dipped in urgency. She looked back toward the house. Then she held up her phone. "Come inside, please. Just don't hate me yet. I should have walked away. But I didn't because sometimes the truth feels safer than wondering." And that was the moment I agreed to see what she'd hidden, without knowing it would change everything I thought I understood about the last year of our marriage. I followed her back into the house. No words, just the soft sound of her bare feet across the floor and the quiet closing of the back door behind me. The house felt colder than it should have. It wasn't the weather. It was the absence of trust, of clarity, of whatever glue used to hold us together. Mallory walked past the table and paused at the kitchen island. She didn't look at the second note, the one that said, "Tell me." Instead, she placed her phone down slowly, screen facing me, her hand hovering above it like she wasn't sure she wanted to go through with whatever this was. She tapped the screen, unlocked it with her thumb, then turned the device toward me. "I didn't record this for you," she said, voice thin, brittle. "But you need to see it." I didn't move closer. I didn't want to sit. I just stood there while she hit play. The video opened in a dimly lit bar, and immediately I recognized the faint glow of Edison bulbs and brick walls. The Elbow Room, a trendy spot near the art district. Mallory had mentioned it once or twice. Said she didn't really like it. Too loud, too downtown. But there she was in the center of the frame, sitting in a booth next to a man I didn't know. At first, nothing looked unusual. They weren't touching. They weren't even sitting that close. But then the man leaned over, whispered something, and Mallory laughed. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. That was the first wound. That laugh. It belonged to a version of her I no longer had access to. The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box, not a ring, something flatter. He slid it across the table to her, and the camera angle shifted. Whoever was recording tried to zoom in. I couldn't make out exactly what it was, but Mallory froze the video right then, paused it, and looked at me. "I wasn't having an affair," she said quickly. "It's not what you think." I didn't say a word. My jaw had tensed up and wouldn't let me speak. "It's worse," she added, "and it's not just about me." She backed out of the video and opened another file. This time just audio, no title, no description. She hit play again. What followed was a recording, low quality, maybe from a hidden mic, of a conversation between two men. Their voices were hushed but clear. "She still thinks I'm going to help her," one of them said. "She's too desperate to notice anything's off." The second man chuckled. "Keep it going. If she hands over the final paperwork, it's done. After that, we vanish." Mallory paused the recording. Her hands were shaking. "I thought he was helping me clear up the house lien from my mom," she said. "He told me there was a way to reverse the legal blocks, that we'd get our land back." "Land? What land?" "I didn't tell you," she continued, "because it was tied to the loan your name was still connected to. I didn't want you involved." I blinked. I was struggling to keep up. Somewhere between betrayal and confusion, I was losing the thread of what this even was. "I thought I was fixing something for us," she whispered. "But they were using me, Ellis. I signed something last month and now everything's under threat. The house, the savings, the equity. They forged your signature." I stepped back. This wasn't the story I was expecting. This wasn't lipstick on collars or secret hotel rooms. This was something else. Something that reached backward into our marriage and forward into our future. And for the first time, I realized Mallory hadn't been lying to get away from me. She'd been lying to protect me from something far darker. But that didn't explain the man she brought home last week, or what she was still hiding. I didn't sleep that night. Mallory stayed curled up on the living room couch, phone clutched to her chest like it was the last thread holding her together. I went to the garage, sat there in the old fold-out chair beside the toolbox my father left me, staring at nothing. My head wasn't spinning. It was worse than that. It was quiet. Too quiet. Like that sick, still moment right before a tornado rips through your world. She had said they forged my name, that she was trying to recover land her mother lost in some obscure deal before we were even married. I never heard a single word about that land. Not when her mom died. Not when we refinanced the house. Not once. But there was something else she said, and it kept crawling back into my mind like a bad echo. It's not just about me. At 4:12 a.m., I went back inside. Mallory had fallen asleep with one sock on, blanket wrapped around her, breathing uneven and shallow. I sat on the far end of the couch, opened her phone, and started scrolling. She'd given me the passcode earlier. No hesitation. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but she said there were more files, one she was too afraid to explain. In a hidden folder labeled simply 3, I found a series of scanned documents, legal forms, some filled out, others partially signed. The third one stopped me cold. It was a transfer of ownership for a property. Seemed normal until I saw the signature line. L.S.J. Gorman, my full name, in handwriting that almost looked like mine. Almost. Except the J curved too hard. And I never crossed my capital G like that. I knew it immediately. Someone had traced it, but didn't know me well enough to get it right. The witness line was signed too. I didn't recognize the name, but I remembered the handwriting. It was the same handwriting from a note Mallory once left me when we first moved into this house. Back when we still left each other love notes in kitchen drawers. Back when we were still we. The name on the document, Cole Bishop. I hadn't heard that name in years, but it landed like a brick in my chest. Cole had been Mallory's ex, a quiet guy older than her, worked in private finance or real estate law depending on which story she told. She swore they lost contact long before we got engaged. Said he moved across the country, but I'd always wondered. There was a message from him years ago buried in her inbox. She deleted it fast, but I saw the subject line once when she passed me her phone. Need to talk. Urgent. Now he was back. Not just back, but on official paperwork that involved my forged signature. Suddenly the man from the video, the one who slid that flat box across the table, took on a different shape. It wasn't a bribe. It was payment. Or maybe a trade. I scrolled further and found something else. A photo, blurry, taken from a distance. Mallory standing outside a glass office building talking to someone in a car. The person in the driver's seat wore sunglasses, hand halfway out the window like he was passing something to her. She hadn't included this in the story she told me, hadn't said anything about meeting someone in a car or making a drop. I stared at it for a long time before realizing what bothered me most. She was crying in the picture, not the delicate movie scene kind of crying. This was raw, her mouth twisted. One hand clutched her stomach like she was in physical pain. Who took the photo? Who sent it to her? And why keep it? I heard her stir on the couch behind me. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes, then saw what I was looking at. Her face changed. Not panic, something worse. Resignation. I didn't want you to see that one, she said quietly. I wasn't ready. Ready for what? I asked. She swallowed hard. Cole isn't just helping them. He's leading it. He's the one who pushed me into all of this. Said he had people who could fix things, but it was never about fixing. It was about controlling. He's been following me for months, Alice. And now, she stopped, looked at the hallway. I followed her gaze. The front door was slightly open, not wide, just enough. I hadn't heard it move. Mallory stood up fast. He was here. Mallory's voice cracked when she said it. He was here. I don't know if it was fear or something closer to dread, but I felt the hairs on my arms rise. That kind of chill doesn't come from weather. It comes from instinct, the body's ancient warning that something isn't right. I moved to the door without saying anything and pushed it shut slowly. There was no sign of anyone on the porch. The motion light hadn't triggered, the camera hadn't pinged, but something about the air outside the door felt occupied. "Did you lock it?" I asked her. She nodded twice. Mallory had always been obsessive about locking doors, an annoying habit when I'd forget my keys. But suddenly it felt like the one thing that had kept whatever was outside from stepping in. I checked the bolt. It was intact. No scratches, no damage. But the feeling didn't leave. Back in the living room, Mallory was pacing now, arms wrapped tight around her torso. She was mumbling under her breath. Something about a deadline. Something about Cole. I caught only pieces. He said Thursday. He wasn't supposed to come here. He promised it'd be remote. Who promised what? I finally asked. She stopped, looked at me with a kind of defeat I didn't recognize in her. Mallory had always been composed, even in arguments, even during funerals. But now she looked like someone who had been running a marathon in a dream where the finish line kept moving. "I didn't think you'd get dragged into this," she whispered. "I didn't want you near it." "That ship sailed when someone forged my name, Mal." Her eyes flicked up. "Don't call me that right now." I almost apologized. I don't know why. Maybe habit. Maybe I still believed I was helping her hold something together, even as it crumbled. She walked over to the kitchen, pulled out the drawer next to the oven, the one we never used, and reached into the very back. Out came a flash drive taped to the bottom of the wood with thick packing tape. I hadn't even known it was there. "I was going to give this to someone else," she said. "But I don't trust anyone anymore. Not even him." She handed it to me. The tape was still clinging to the sides. I didn't ask what was on it. I just turned it over in my hand and felt the weight of secrets that don't belong on paper. "Play it somewhere safe," she added. "Not here. Not on your laptop. Don't use Wi-Fi. Don't plug it into anything connected to this house." "How bad is it?" I asked. Her silence was the answer. I pocketed the flash drive and started toward the garage to grab my old burner laptop. A dusty thing I hadn't touched in years, last used during a freelance security audit job I never even told Mallory about. Halfway through the hallway, something made me stop. The laundry room door was cracked open. That was odd. We hadn't been in there all night. I pushed it slowly. The light was off. The smell was faint. Cologne, not mine. Not even a scent. I recognized something crisp, expensive, almost sterile. And then I saw it on top of the washer. A single folded piece of paper. My name was handwritten on the front. Ellis in that same crooked looping cursive I'd seen on the forged documents. I didn't open it right away. I called Mallory over. When she saw it, her hands went to her face like she just stepped on something sharp. He left it here. Inside, I opened the letter. There was no greeting, no signature, just one sentence. "I warned you she would choose the wrong man again." I felt my entire body lock up. It wasn't the words, it was what they implied. That this wasn't just about a property scam or a past romance or a mistake she'd buried. Someone had been watching us closely, long enough to feel ownership over our choices, long enough to enter our house, leave a message, and vanish again. That's when I heard the garage door. Not the one I was headed toward, the one in the basement, the one we never use. It was opening. The sound of the basement garage door rising was like a breath being held too long. Finally exhaling. Metallic, slow, deliberate. A sound I hadn't heard in over a year. Mallory and I barely used that level. It had become a sort of forgotten space, mostly filled with storage bins, an old desk, and the broken treadmill neither of us had the motivation to toss out. I locked eyes with her. Her face drained to something ghost-like. "That's not... You didn't open it remotely, did you?" she asked. "No," I said. She grabbed my arm, her grip tighter than it had any right to be. "Then someone's inside." I didn't wait. I bolted for the coat closet, grabbed the flashlight I kept taped to the wall, and bypassed the dead batteries for the backup pack I stored in the drawer. My heart wasn't racing the way I expected. It was steady, cold, like my body had already made a decision before I could catch up. Mallory followed behind me, barefoot, silent. The basement door creaked open, and immediately that same unfamiliar scent drifted up the stairs. Not a strong cologne, no. Something more clinical. Disinfectant. Maybe masking something else. I held the flashlight tight, flicked it on, and stepped down. The light traced the stairwell slowly. No movement, no sound other than the soft click of the garage door, now fully open and still. I reached the bottom step and stopped. The garage light was off, but the interior door, the one that led to the storage hallway, was open. It was never open. That door had warped over time and stuck unless you yanked it with force. Someone had yanked it, hard. I whispered over my shoulder, "Stay upstairs." Mallory didn't respond, but I heard her stop moving. I stepped into the basement garage. The air was cooler, and I instantly noticed something I'd missed earlier. A line of faint footprints on the concrete, just a couple of smudges, really barely visible, but they were recent. Not ours, not dusty, damp. Someone had been walking down there barefoot or in socks. I followed them to the hallway. The storage hallway was short, maybe 15 feet long, with shelves on one side and a fuse panel on the other. But tonight, there was something new. A portable camping chair unfolded, set against the far wall. On it, another note and a phone. The note was typed, not handwritten, printed on paper from our home printer. I recognized the faded corner. It read, "You let her lie. Now you'll both learn why silence doesn't protect." Underneath the message was a symbol I didn't recognize. 3 interlocking squares, almost like a logo or a signature. Mallory's old phone sat on the chair too, the one she said she lost last fall. Cracked screen, still powered off. I picked it up, flipped it over. A sticker was on the back. Same 3-square symbol. I didn't peel it off. My fingers were shaking now, and for the first time all night the dread wasn't distant. It was real, breathing down my neck. I turned to head back upstairs, and that's when I heard the closet door creak open above me. Not the basement door, not the garage, the upstairs hall closet, the one by our bedroom. I raced up the stairs 2 at a time. Mallory was no longer at the top. I reached the landing, heart pounding, flashlight beams swaying wildly, and I saw her standing completely still at the end of the hallway, just outside our bedroom door, staring at something on the floor. I walked up behind her slowly. "Don't come closer," she said, not in panic, but in that eerie, detached way you speak when your brain hasn't caught up to what your eyes are seeing. I stepped beside her anyway. Lying in front of our bedroom door, neatly placed, was another folded note, this time written in my handwriting, except I hadn't written it. It said, "Upstairs was always safer, until now." I looked up and realized the attic hatch was open. The attic hatch hung open like a silent dare. A ladder had been pulled down halfway, not fully extended, the top steps vanishing into shadow. I'd only been up there twice, once to shove holiday boxes inside, once more to run a cable through the beams. Mallory never went up, said the dust gave her headaches. And yet here it was open, waiting, watching. Mallory didn't move. Her breath was shallow. Her hands pressed flat against the doorframe like it was the only thing holding her upright. I reached for her gently and she flinched. "We're not alone," she whispered. I think that was the point. I turned the flashlight toward the opening above us. Nothing moved. The silence had a weight to it. Not the silence of a sleeping house, the kind that follows a lie finally exposed. I stepped toward the ladder, but before I could touch it, we both froze. A single footstep above, soft, careful, but undeniable. Mallory clutched my arm. "You don't have to go up." I wanted to say something brave, something that would make this feel less surreal. But the truth was, I wasn't sure I even wanted the answers anymore. Some mysteries protect you. Some answers leave you emptier. Still, I went. Step by slow step, the ladder gave under my weight, groaning just slightly. I felt the heat rising from my chest into my throat. That nervous fire that burns when your body wants to run but your mind says, keep going. At the top, I peeked my head through the opening and stopped. Someone had been living up there, not recently, for a while. There was a thin mattress, the kind you'd use for camping. Bottles of water, food wrappers, an old duffel bag. The brand worn off, but the zipper tag was familiar. I leaned in. It was mine. From college. Disappeared years ago. There were Polaroids, too, taped to the beam. Photos of our living room, our kitchen. Mallory sleeping on the couch. One of me sitting on the back porch drinking coffee, eyes closed. I felt the burn of nausea behind my ribs. There was a phone, no SIM card, set up on a mini tripod, aimed downward through a vent grill that opened straight into our bedroom. Whoever had been up here wasn't hiding from us. He had been watching, studying. And then I saw something else. A large envelope, thick, concealed, my name written across it. I took it, didn't open it, not yet. I backed down the ladder, barely breathing. Mallory looked at me like she already knew what I'd seen. I nodded once, then handed her the envelope. She hesitated, then tore it open. Inside were documents, dozens of them, but on top a photo, black and white, faded. A child sitting on a swing, crying. A woman pushing him, her face blurred by motion, and a man standing behind them, his hand on the boy's shoulder. Mallory dropped the photo like it burned her. "That's my mother," she whispered. She reached into the envelope again. More photos, one after another, all from years ago. All of Mallory as a child. Some from places she couldn't remember visiting. And always in the background, the same man, sometimes closer, sometimes just a shadow in glass. One document in the stack was a name change certificate. Original name, Elliot James Rowan. New name, Cole Everett Bishop. My breath caught. Mallory's ex wasn't just some obsessive ex. He had been in her life long before she remembered, and now he had inserted himself again. Not just through forged documents, not just through lies, but physically, secretly. He had lived above us, watched us, documented us. This wasn't about money anymore. This wasn't even about Mallory. This was about something much older, something unfinished. Mallory finally looked up at me, her eyes wide and wet. "He's not just trying to destroy us. He's been trying to finish something he started a long time ago. Before I even knew who he really was. What was it? I asked. She shook her head slowly. I think I was his experiment. For the next 48 hours, we didn't sleep. Not properly. Not together. Not without the lights on. Mallory and I sat at opposite ends of the house, passing old documents between us like they were bombs we were too scared to defuse. Every page from that attic folder pulled back another layer. Every name we thought we knew, including our own, seemed to dissolve into something else. The man calling himself Cole Bishop had built an entire identity on a lie. And Mallory? She had been manipulated before she even understood the meaning of that word. She had memories, faint ones, of a man who used to bring her candy at the playground, who whispered things to her when her mother wasn't looking. She thought it was an uncle, a distant family friend. She never asked. He disappeared when she was 12, or so she thought. Turns out he never left. He simply got better at hiding. The photos were proof enough. The forged documents, the secret room in the attic, the footprint trail in the garage that stopped just short of the wall, which we later discovered concealed a hidden crawl space. He'd been in and out of our lives in ways we couldn't have imagined. But here's the part one never saw coming. Mallory wasn't broken by it. She was angry, betrayed, terrified, yes, but not destroyed. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't shut me out. She let me sit with her as she cried. Let me hold her hand when she called her aunt to verify the things she now barely believed about her childhood. The aunt confirmed it all. Yes, there had been a man named Elliot Rowan. No one ever talked about him. He wasn't supposed to be in their lives anymore. They thought he died in a fire in Oregon 20 years ago. Clearly, he hadn't. The police took over from there. They handled everything. We handed over the flash drive, the attic evidence, the photos, the forged contracts. Mallory gave a statement. I filed one too. It became a full investigation, and we learned we weren't the only ones he'd tracked. There were other couples, other properties, other games. But we were the first to speak up, and that mattered, because within weeks, he was found. He wasn't living in our town anymore. He'd moved on, left just hours after we found the attic, but not before leaving behind the letter, the final twist of the knife. They picked him up outside a campground 4 states away, carrying 3 burner phones and a notebook filled with names. Ours were still underlined. We didn't attend the hearings. We didn't need to. We weren't victims anymore. We were survivors of a story that didn't want to end. And yet somehow we chose to end it ourselves. After everything, Mallory and I didn't go back to how we were. That life, the one where lasagna dinners and half-spoken sentences filled the silence, that life was over. But something else replaced it. Something smaller, slower, realer. She started therapy. I did too, together and separately. And one morning, without saying a word, she came out of the guest room, sat beside me, and laid her head on my shoulder. She whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." When I couldn't explain myself, I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. We just sat there side by side in the sunlight that poured through the window, the same window that used to feel like glass between us. Weeks passed, then months. We sold the house. We didn't want the attic or the crawl space or the door that had been left cracked open one too many times. We moved out to the edge of town, a place with wide windows, no basement, and more sky than we knew what to do with. Mallory planted lavender. I built a bench out back. Sometimes we sit on it and say nothing at all. And sometimes silence doesn't need to be broken. Sometimes silence means peace. And after everything, peace is the loudest thing we've ever heard.